My brother-in-law told me I'd failed as a godfather because I wouldn't drive 2 hours to babysit his children while both parents sat in the next room. When my sister Allison and her husband Mark asked my husband Tom and me to be godparents, I thought it meant we'd step in if something terrible happened, that we'd be the safety net, the emergency plan. I didn't realize it meant I was signing up to be their unpaid, on-call childcare from 100 miles away. I've never been alone with an infant. I told them that up front. When they asked me to watch their firstborn during the birth of their second child, I agreed but asked them to schedule practice sessions so I could learn the basics. They agreed. They never followed through. As the date got closer, my anxiety climbed until I couldn't ignore it. I backed out less than a week before the birth. I know I messed up. I've apologized more times than I can count. But I also know that if they'd taken 30 minutes to show me how to hold a bottle or change a diaper, I would have been there. After the second baby arrived, the requests started. Always 1 or 2 days notice. Always at their house. 2 hours from mine. Always all day or overnight. And almost always while both parents were still home. I'd drive 4 hours round trip to sit on their couch watching their kids while Allison and Mark were in the other room. They promised to reimburse me for gas and tolls. They never did. Not once. I went anyway. Multiple times. Even after I suffered a workplace injury that made long drives excruciating. And even after Tom started having health issues. Even when my work schedule became overwhelming. I kept showing up because I was trying to make up for the one time I didn't. When I couldn't make it, I offered alternate dates. They were never available on those dates. When I suggested they drop the kids off at our place instead, they declined. When I offered to pay for a babysitter, Allison said she didn't trust babysitters. Every door I opened, they closed. Every solution I offered, they rejected. The only acceptable answer was me driving to them, on their schedule, regardless of my health or circumstances. Then Mark sent me a text out of nowhere. He brought up events from 10 years ago. He mentioned a time I'd been homeless and had hoped to stay with them. He referenced a time I'd let Allison move across the country to stay with me for 6 months for her career, something he apparently never wanted her to do, but had never told me. He said he was in danger of losing his job, and implied my failure to babysit was partly responsible. I was stunned. I tried calling him. He didn't answer. I texted back trying to understand where this was coming from. He never responded. Later I found out he'd blocked me immediately after sending his message. He'd launched a grenade and sealed the bunker. When I told Allison I wanted an apology, she told me to wait. Mark would call when he was ready. A week later he finally did. He didn't apologize. He told me I was no longer godfather. Then he listed grievances I'd never heard before. Complaints about times I'd been at their house babysitting and supposedly just watched television. Every time I offered a rebuttal, Mark said he was asleep at the time and was just repeating what Allison told him. Then came the birthday text. I sent Mark a simple, happy birthday message. Within minutes he was telling me I'd failed them, that I chose my career over family, that my abusive upbringing was the reason I didn't understand what godparents were supposed to do. My sister and I grew up in an abusive household. We've both told Mark about this over the years. He used our trauma as ammunition to explain why I was a bad uncle. I told him his expectations were never communicated, that no research I'd done supported the idea that godparents are supposed to be on-call babysitters, that I didn't understand why being present for the big moments in his children's lives required me to abandon my own priorities. He told me I wasn't looking at the bigger picture. Then he said if I messaged Allison to complain about him, he would personally make a trip to make sure it didn't happen again. He's ex-military. The threat landed exactly as he intended it to. I blocked him. I have no intention of contacting either of them again. People ask me why I didn't walk away sooner. Because Allison is the only family member I'm close to. Because I wanted to be the uncle those kids deserved. The kind I never had growing up. Because in South Asian families, cutting ties isn't something you do lightly. It carries weight that people outside the culture don't always understand. But I tried everything. I drove hours while injured. I apologized repeatedly for one mistake. I'm done. Tom and I are focusing on each other and on healing. I hope those kids grow up happy and loved. I hope they never know how hard I tried to stay in their lives. And I hope they never need the safety net their parents spent years trying to shred. I would have been there if the worst had happened. That was always the point. But apparently the worst that happened was me saying no to a Tuesday afternoon babysitting request. And that was unforgivable.